Well, FreshBaked, today I attended the official reopening of Avengers Campus at California Adventure. But while we were there eating, giant pretzels and shooting spiders run amok and taking in some really beautiful scenery, we also heard some news that could not wait until Sunday. Today at a news conference that was intended to celebrate winners of California's recent vaccination lottery, Governor Gavin Newsom said that he does not intend to lift all of the restrictions that were supposed to be lifted on June 15th. June 15th, he said it's not going to happen the way that he said it was going to happen, or at least it appears that way. Now, June 15th is a date that all of Californians have been waiting for, a date that is supposed to, sort of celebrate the return to some kind of normalcy. That's a word we've been throwing around lately. And it includes places like Disneyland, where a lot of our, abilities to go to the park have been affected by the restrictions, and we're supposed to be lifted by the removal of these restrictions. A date that was supposed to trigger an increase in capacity in the parks and to invite out-of-state guests to visit Disneyland. So what happened? Well, it starts, I believe, with OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. And they have basically, OSHA has said they're going to reject the CDC's recent guidance that masks need not be worn anywhere, really, but including specifically, in OSHA's case, to the workplace. Now, OSHA is responsible, it's the agency responsible for safety in the workplace, and they represent all of California, all businesses in California, not just individual entities or individual companies, but every working person in the state. So their position is newsworthy, and it bears attention. Now, OSHA believes that the workplace is different from every place else, in the state, and that masks should only be removed when everyone in a given workspace is fully vaccinated. So naturally, the governor was asked about this today, asked if he intended to maintain his June 15th position of lifting the restrictions. Now, actually, this is something that I've talked about in the past, something that I've been kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, because while he has said June 15th, while they have said it, there's never been this sort of, I've never felt a formal confirmation like it's definitely going to happen. I thought we had it last week, but it was still a little edgy, and this is exactly the kind of thing that I've been afraid of, is that there's going to be some sort of hedging, and here we are. Gavin Newsom said the emergency remains in effect after June 15th because we're still in a state of emergency. The disease is still in effect. It is not taking the summer off. Now, the important thing to note here is that it is still the state's position to reopen the economy on June 15th. That is what June 15th's date wasn't necessarily about removing these restrictions, but about reopening the economy and doing what they can to get things started again. And then what he's talking about remaining and keeping in effect is the emergency notification, the executive orders that go with the state of emergency. So it's not entirely clear what his intentions are. In fact, all of this conversation came about seemingly kind of off the cuff. Questions asked by a journalist in a post, the vaccination lottery news conference. So, it wasn't even supposed to be the topic of conversation. The journalist asked the questions, he answered them, and it kind of felt like, in a way, that if he hadn't asked the questions, that we wouldn't be talking about this right now. And who knows what their position would have been. Maybe he changed it still, but it is kind of curious about how all this came to. It was kind of confrontational, argumentative, is what I guess I'm trying to get at, which is curious. But that's typical for this type of conversation. And it's harder still to say what these changes, what this new state of mind for Newsom in the state of California, what their position is. It's hard to tell what that means for California businesses, especially those businesses that operate in these sort of high-profile mega event type things that Disneyland falls under. Smaller operations probably aren't going to feel this at all. Everything else, the smaller things are going to be able to return to normal, but it's the bigger events that appear to be a little bit more, at risk, I should say. So far, he's only appeared to acknowledge that some capacity restrictions may remain in effect, and that we should be getting some new guidance, some updated guidance in the next couple of days. So what does this mean for capacity increases that have already been put in place, tickets that have already been sold, reservations that have already been made? I have a feeling that those should still be in place because those tickets and reservations were done while still under the yellow tier. We're still in it. We're still in that yellow tier. And those tickets and those capacity increases were done under that guidance. A question unanswered, though, is what about the out-of-state guests that were invited to come back to Disneyland to buy a ticket that's been sold and to make a reservation that's already been made? It's an interesting dilemma. Should the state decide to reverse its course and undo that decision? My feeling, though, is that those guests will not be denied, because I don't feel like that's the kind of thing that they're trying to address with his comments or with whatever restrictions or capacity limitations they keep in effect. I do feel like they're still going to keep the borders open, so that's a good thing. It's just the capacity limits that are going to be kept in place. So we're just going to have more competition for that limits if everything goes according to this, if they do maintain the capacity limits and if Disney still follows those capacity limits. Now, the other thing that I will say is that they weren't really checking IDs anyway, so you take that for what you will. I feel like that part of the conversation is probably a non-starter. And I don't think that the state is going to try to enforce that. I really don't, because they've already opened that can. And you can't put that horse back in the barn, in my opinion. I just used a bunch of metaphors there. I don't even know what I'm doing. It's late. It's like 11 o'clock. Otherwise, there's little to go on at this moment. He was very vague in his comments today. A lot of coulds, a lot of maybes. So it's hard to say where we're going to be. We're going to find out hopefully in the next couple of days. So stay tuned to FreshBaked. You can count on us. We'll have all the news as it develops, plus whatever we think it means for Disneyland. So stay tuned. Subscribe to our channel. Turn on the notifications, and then you can follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked and on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney. That's Fresh with no E. And on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. Otherwise, we love you guys. Please be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And FreshBaked.